Hi there. My name is Tina Franzen, and I'm the Technology Services Consultant with Trillium Lakelands District School Board. And today I'd like to talk to you about Scratch Junior. So, this is probably one of my favorite applications to get students started with coding. And I know that it seems to be one of those programs that people would say it's for or primary students. I actually disagree. I don't think it's just for primary. I think anybody and even adults could learn using Scratch Junior. It is a really slick product where you can get into sophisticated coding with blocks very quickly. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I would really like to dig into Scratch Junior just so that you can get started with Scratch Junior and be comfortable with it, and so that your students are also comfortable with this application. Okay, so to get started with Scratch Junior, I would like to look at how you're going to access the TLDSB coding site. It's something that we're building to help support our educators, certainly not limited to TLDSB. This is for anybody. But I want to show you how you can have more than just this video on how to get started and all these wonderful resources moving forward. How to open up Scratch Junior. I'm going to talk specifically about the Chromebook. It is available on your iPads or any tablet, so it's Android or iOS device. You're good to go on tablets. I would like to show you some sample activities that already pre-exist in the Scratch Junior world. Then we're going to actually dig in and look into Scratch Junior itself, where you could create activities. What does that interface look like? What kind of blocks exist that you can use in Scratch Junior? And then how do we actually program something in Scratch Junior and then execute that program? Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take you to our TLDSB coding site, and how to get here, it's tldsb.ca/coding. And when you're here, on the left-hand side, you're going to see some options. And Scratch Junior getting started, this is where we're going to go today. What I've done here is I've incorporated a website that currently exists, which is fantastic, and it actually it works with also this book, this resource. And in our district, there's supposed to be at least one of these books in all of our schools. But if you don't have one, it may be a resource you may want to look into. But they do have a website, which is great, and I am linking to it here. So it is called ScratchJunior.org. And what I've taken is and embedded that part of their website, where I love this, because if you would like to dig around that interface, and we're going to look at this specifically in this video anyways, but you can always just click on these buttons here and it will tell you exactly what is what. And if you want to even change a language so that it's a little bit different here, you can actually click on this menu for English and then choose a different language if you would like. So I think this is super cool. So I wanted to definitely embed that on our website. Further down, what you'll see is on this website is that I will have some lessons ideas. So we're going to be building on this, and I am going to tie it into the new math curriculum in Ontario. And on our website, you will see some resources here under this new header for Math New Ontario Curriculum. And I will be connecting Scratch Junior activities. And of course here, so for more activities, there's some great websites that have already created fantastic resources for us to dig into Scratch Junior. So I highly encourage you taking a look at those. And then of course, printable Scratch Junior blocks. Great opportunity to do some unplugged activities with using the blocks that already exist. A great idea that I've heard that other people have done is where they print off these blocks, but what they do is they deliberately don't print off, or they don't have the number here, or just somehow wipe them out, laminate them, and then use the blocks around the classroom. So some great ideas there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is actually Scratch Junior on a Chromebook. And as mentioned, you can download it, of course, on your iOS tablet or, of course, your Android tablet as well. So let's get started on the Chromebook. As you can see, I'm sharing my Chromebook screen now. And what I want to show you is how we can find Scratch Junior. So in our board anyways, if you click on our circle on the bottom here, I'm just going to move my computer cursor just out of the way here. Okay. Most recent, of course, applications will be listed here, and you can see that I've already accessed Scratch Junior just recently. But of course, you can find it by doing a search in here for Scratch Junior if you don't see it here. Or if I click on the up arrow, I would see all the applications on my device, and I could find it that way. All right, so I'm going to click on Scratch Junior, or I can tap it because it is touchscreen, very similar as to the touchscreen on your tablets if you're using an iPad or an Android tablet. Now, please note this is a disclaimer about for those of you who are using Chromebooks. And I know in our district we have a lot of Chromebooks out there, which is why I'm really encouraging the use of Scratch Junior because it's great that you can use them on the Chromebooks. Downfall, you cannot save your programs on a Chromebook. So unlike on an iPad or an Android device with the application, you can actually save, go back to those products, to those projects, and actually share it with your teacher and all these kind of neat little pieces using the AirDrop, for example, on an iPad. Unfortunately, though, on a Chromebook, you cannot. All right, so I'm going to tap on the, actually, I was going to tap on the home. That's to get started because that's where I normally go. But I'm going to actually take a step back for just a moment. I'm going to click on the question mark. So if you click on the question mark, what you're going to find is you're going to get some resources. Okay, and there's a little video that will start it off and just kind of give you a little tutorial of kind of like with Scratch. I'm just going to close that piece. There we go. So I clicked on the question mark there. That was kind of a weird beginning there. That's no worries. So the house being, of course, where we're going to actually start a new project, but I'm still going to focus back on this question mark because what is this? So this is that the video that they tried to start here, but these are also programs that already pre-exist. So what's nice about this is if you do tap on any of these programs, so let me just do that real quick. So if I go to, let's say the quick intro one at the very bottom right-hand corner, so this guy right here, let's tap on that and see what happens. We're now going to see the Scratch Junior interface and we see some code already. And then what we can do is play the code and see how this program plays out. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, we happen to have two stages. So we have like kind of like two storylines that are happening. And then we have here, we have two sprites. So we have that, and I'm going to dig into more of this interface in a few minutes. So, but for now, you can click on the run the program, and I could click the green flag here, but that will only play this piece of the code. What I would like to do is click this green flag to say go, because I have a feeling, and I'm going to click on it real quick, this particular sprite also has some code that is associated with clicking on the green flag. So I'm going to go back to Scratchy the Cat for a moment, clicking on the green flag. There we go. So we have some action happening here, and it does look like I do have an action item here too. Hey, look at what happens if I touch Scratchy the Cat. So if I actually click on Scratchy the Cat, we do have something else that happens, and it looks like he disappears. And I don't know if you could hear that, but there's a little sound there. So we actually, it triggered this motion of events to now go to this next screen. And you can see now a new sprite is introduced, is a fish, and you can see the fish is just swimming continuously. And we have the cat made a sound with a wait of 10 seconds. So I'm not going to get into all the coding elements at this point, but I just wanted to show you that there's some great sample activities that you can go into that are pre-made. And this is where you can start that conversation with your students about how the blocks work and what's happening. So it's an opportunity to read the code. You can even alter the code and see what happens. And because when you execute, it's like, oh, what if I change this 10 to 20? If I change it to 5, things like that. And if I go back to my first backdrop here, you could have the students talk about, well, what's happening here? And we can look at this particular piece and seeing what's happening to Scratchy the Cat, what do these arrows potentially mean, and then play it out and maybe see what happens when you change these numbers. All right, let's get out of here. I'm going to click on the home button. And we're going to click on the home button again. And now I'm going to start a new project. Now it looks like there's a project even lingering. So we can see about the saving piece that I mentioned earlier. Now, depending on your Chromebook, if you don't log out of the Chromebook, that actually should linger, that project. But it's when you log out of the Chromebook that you'll probably no longer see that project available to you, because it's now, theoretically, you could take that Chromebook and pass it on to somebody else. They log in with their credentials, and therefore your program is no longer there. So I'm going to start with a fresh one. And here's the Scratch Junior interface. So just for example, because I'm not going to go through every single little item here, back on the website. So whether you go to the tldsb.ca/coding website or to the scratchjr.org website, there is that interactive piece where you could toggle through and it will tell you exactly what each item is here. I'm just going to give you a general overview so that you can feel comfortable with this ScratchJR environment and you can get started with your students. First things first, you have along the top here where we have a blank slate, which is automatically selected. But by all means, switch that up and you can have now a Cartesian grid. So when you see that it's your first quadrant. So you have your X and your Y values that are positive. So for our Ontario educators, this is certainly something that we're digging into when we're doing things like with our shapes. So some transformations that are taking place. And we can model that here with this Cartesian grid ready to go. I can just go back to putting that away and we're back to our white space. This is where we can change the backdrop. So it gives me all these different options. And as you can see up along here, you can actually create your own backdrop however you like. So I'm just going to grab one. Let's pick this one. So it looks like the summer. Sounds like a great idea. Check mark so that that's now going to be included. And you can see here, there's a plus sign here. So I can now grab more backdrops for different scenes, kind of like you saw in that demo. And then you'd have to figure out, well, how do I get to that next screen? So those are a little more, I would say, somewhat advanced tools, but by all means, by even looking back at the other coding that took place in the demos, you could probably figure it out fairly quickly how that happened. All right, so here we are. We have this sprite, Scratchy the cat. And as you can see, there's a watermark, so it gives you a really good visual that we're coding for Scratchy, the cat. What I'm going to do for this demonstration is now add another sprite, and you can see how this can switch up. So I'm going to click on the plus sign. Now here are looks like some elements that maybe I played with before, like just recently, that are up in the very top. I can go down here and, oh, and just like the backdrops, of course, I want you to be aware you can create your own item. What's really neat with the kids, it's very popular, is if you can find these sprites that have a blank face. So let's say an astronaut, for example, which would be so appropriate with a summer scene. I think that'll be a little fun. So let's click on check mark. And there we go. Now we have the astronaut. So put the astronaut over here. I'm going to put Scratchy the cat here for now. And I think because we chose the astronaut, and I did mention, and this is a really good catch with our kids, no matter how old they are, everyone, for the most part, usually likes to see their face in there. And if they don't like to put their own face, but maybe they want to put in a friend's face in here, I'm going to show you quickly how you can do that. So we're going to click on this paintbrush for astronaut. And what you can see here is in the face, if I just click here in the face, it's black now. And what I'm going to do is use the camera tool on the right-hand side. So I needed to click on the face one more time, and now you can see me talking through our image here. So when I'm happy with this, when I think I have what I want, it's now taken a picture. I can redo that, of course. And while I'm here, what I could also do, which is a lot of fun, is I can actually change, let's say, the astronaut outfit. So I could be a different color. So if I wanted to change it to, let's say, an orange astronaut suit, let's take a look. If I just click here, all of a sudden I have an orange astronaut suit. And let's say I wanted to have the top part here to be black where I have a little bit of red. Let's see if I can make that happen. Perfect. All right, so let's say I'm happy with my astronaut and now I'm going to put it back into our environment. I'm just going to click on the check mark. Feel free, have the kids play in here. Explore all the different tools, the drawing tools, the shapes, the different lines and so on, the stamping, cutting and so on. They can have a lot of fun with this, whether they use a pre-existing sprite or creating their own. All right, so now I have my sprite in here with my, of course, Scratchy the cat. I can leave both of them ready to go. I want to make sure we're clear, though, as to knowing when I'm coding for one versus the other. As you can see, the watermark now is my astronaut. And if I want to now program for Scratchy the cat, all I have to do is click on Scratchy the cat there. Let's quickly take a look at some of the blocks here. So this is blocks of code. What I really like about these blocks of code is that there's no words, which is fantastic. So we don't have to worry about that language barrier. We don't have to worry about the reading barriers that may exist. It's all about the program itself. What do we want our sprites to do? And let's do it. Let's program it. Let's figure it out, play around. So I'm going to go from left to right. So because it's really nicely set up here in this palette where we have these blocks here. This is like our starting off blocks. So you may recall, or if you've ever played with the regular Scratch, these are like event blocks. I do know that the naming in Scratch Junior is slightly different than Scratch. So I apologize if I get them not named perfectly 100% correct. But hopefully you get the idea. These are those hat blocks, which mean just start things off. So start the program. So what do you want it to be? A program with the green flag, as you saw in a demo earlier? Or do I want it to be, of course, if I were to click on or tap on the sprite, then something then happens. And this one being where one sprite runs into another sprite, this happens. And this is probably one of my favorite action items here is where I'm sending a message. So let's say in my code, I'm sending a message saying, hey, something's happened. I'm going to send a message. And these are by color. These are different envelopes. And let's say I were to send a red envelope or send an orange envelope, whatever it is, and then I would receive that envelope and get that message and then program. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I get pretty excited about this functionality, but I'm just going to stick right now to the simplicity of these ones to get our program started. So let's drag this on. All right, so there we go. We have it here where this is our programming area and this is our stage. So we're going to see what happens. And we're going to now click on the next set of blocks. These are our motion blocks, and these are the default blocks that appear when we first come into Scratch Junior. This is where I can decide, do I want, let's say, Scratchy to move? Now I could, let's say if I wanted Scratchy to move 5 steps, I could drag 5 of these down. I want to make sure they snap right in. And if I run that code, you saw how it highlighted the blocks and it did move 5 times. Now, when we do programming, and again, for Ontario educators, one thing that keeps coming up is that not just to code something like a sequential event like this, what we would want to do now is be more efficient with our code. And one way of doing that is I'm going to take all this, just let it disappear, and I just have to do that by click and dragging it out or using my finger to click and drag. And I can tap the number 1. And now I'm given a number option here. So how many times would I like Scratchy to move? I want him to move 5 times. Now that's changed. This is going back to that unplugged activity I was mentioning earlier, where you have your blocks, you print them off, which is nice, is not to have the ones underneath those blocks so that you do have these options like, well, how many times do I want to do this? And this time it's 5. Let's check our code. It's always a good thing to do, is always test our code to see if it doesn't work the way we want it. So I'm gonna move Scratchy back somewhere over here. And now let's test our code. Green flag, I'm gonna click it here, or again, I could click up here. Since I've only done 1 line of code, I'm not too worried about seeing everything all happening at once because I only have one thing happening. So it doesn't really matter at this point where I click or tap. And sure enough, Scratchy again moved 5 places. So it was 1 block of code versus 5 blocks of code. So there's a little more efficiency there. Excellent. So we could have fun here. You could have your students just grab a few things to see what happens if you say going up and down. And again, you could talk about your units of measurement here. How many units do you want to go up? How many units you want to go down? This does transfer nicely when you get into the Scratch environment, which is basically the evolution, I would say, of Scratch Junior. And then you talk about changing your X and changing your Y. So going horizontally and changing vertical. All right, I can grab a few more of these things if I want. Change the numbers if you'd like. And then maybe what I'd like to do is have this process of whatever Scratchy is doing. And let me just model this real quick. Tap. You can see they go through the blocks of code to show you exactly what's happening. Awesome. I'm going to jump over to my orange blocks of code. Let me show you something. This is where it's kind of neat, where I can now loop something. So I can kind of nest some code in a loop so that it repeats itself over and over again. It's not kind of the same lines as it having that one block moving to the right 5 places rather than having 5 blocks of code. Again, if I wanted these 4 series of events to occur, let's say 3 times, I certainly don't want to have to redo those 4 lines of code 3 times. So rather, I'm going to take this guy, drag it on. So now I've embraced basically this line of code. I'm going to tap the number 4. I said I would like to do this 3 times. So now this is nesting this line of code so that it should theoretically loop 3 times. So let's take a look. Now in Scratch Junior, as you saw here, if I were to program to be off the stage, it just circles back around. When you get into Scratch itself, that doesn't happen. Once you're off the stage, you're off the stage. So just keep that in mind, but it is nice for in this environment, we don't have to worry too much about going off the stage and what does that look like when they can just come back. Okay, so while I'm here with the orange blocks, I just want to explore just real quickly with you. There's some great control features here where we have, and you can just hover over here, we have the wait block, we have the stop block, so stop all, and then this one's a really neat one. So I can go faster or slower. So this is something I could do where, let's say I put this in the beginning of my program and click on the drop-down menu here. I can go very slow. I can go normal pace, regular pace, or I can go very quickly. So let's choose it really quickly and tap that. I'm going to move Scratchy just to the left a little bit there. And now let's test our code. Excellent. So this is like our control block. So it's just, again, in Scratch, we have control blocks where we have a little bit of control over the situation. And in this case, the speed. All right, let's go to the other blocks real quickly just to give you an idea of what's what. Here you can see we have a speech bubble where you can change the comments. So if I put that speech bubble here in front, I could say hi. And while we're at it, why don't we jump to the astronaut? So I'm going to tap on the astronaut. I'm going to bring a block code here. I could also have the green flag if I would like, and a bunch of action items that are going to take place. I could have, let's say, he can say hi as well. Note, however, if I go back to the cat here, so you see how they both have green flags, me hi, hi. It's not like they're one dependent on the other. It's not like when Scratchy says hi, the astronaut's going to say hi. The program saying green flag is clicked, astronaut saying hi, Scratchy the cat saying hi. Okay, so we can, however, program it so that it is dependent, not independent events, but that's not where we're going right now. But we do happen to have 2 parallel tasks happening at the same time. When the green flag is clicked, something's happening with Scratchy the cat, and the astronaut is doing something at the same time. So we have something simultaneously occurring. All right, so let's go back to astronaut real quick, and we can explore other items while we're here talking about the astronaut. Oh, before I do that, let's just quickly look at the other code here. Take a look. You can see we're talking about shrinking. So it's kind of like a dilation if you want to get into that. So we can get bigger, we can get smaller. You can even have the hide, this one right here. Let me just bring my cursor over. This is hiding the sprite, and this is bringing the sprite back. So just to quickly show you that, I can put it here. And this is really kind of funny. If I put this at the end here, and I bring this guy here to bring him back. And if I were to play this code just for the astronaut, it would be like they disappear and appear, but it probably happens so fast that it won't even look like they disappeared. Let's test that. That's my theory. Let's see. So hi, and it's like disappeared and get back again. So there was barely even a glimmer. If this was in the Scratch environment, it would have been like it never happened because it would be super fast. So let's go back to our control blocks for a moment. So our orange blocks. And I'm going to take a wait time and I'm going to put it in between the disappearing and the reappearing. I'm going to change that to, let's say 3 seconds. And now let's test our code. So if I tap the green flag for the astronaut down here, I'm just playing this code, not all the code. Let's take a look. Hi, disappears for supposed to be about 3 seconds. Maybe it's 3,000 seconds. I'll look into that. And then appears. Okay, that's our astronaut. And then we have our Scratchy the cat. Let's test all of our code. I mentioned how I clicked on the green flag at the below. Let's click on the green flag at top. Okay, so 2 simultaneous events occurred at the exact same time. Excellent. All right, let's take a look at what other code exists. There's the sound one. This is really a lot of fun. This is where you can actually record even your own voice. So if I were to tap on the microphone, yay! Let's bring that in. And if I were to tap that, hopefully you can hear this. Yay! Excellent. So this is where you can even be having the students control their sprites so they tell a story. And they can even record their voice as to saying something that's part of telling the story. So there's a lot of fun you can have with this, with the actual microphone, making the cat noises, or if you have, if let's say you're at a farm animal, I'm pretty sure there's a demo activity where there's a farm. And if you were to tap the animals, they would make the animal sounds. So it's kind of neat to do that. All right, and last set of blocks I'm just going to explore with you in this particular activity is that this is just the block just to end it all off. It's just a really formal way of saying this is it. This is our code. We're done. This one here, though, let's test this. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tap on the green flag within the code, and let's see what happens to our astronaut. All right, so we'll stop that. And I just had to tap on the red symbol to indicate a stop sign at the very top to stop that code. Because what you saw here is that it's going to infinitely loop. So if you recall, we saw a demo where we had a fish going back and forth swimming. That would be an ideal opportunity to put that infinite piece at the end where it just repeats through that loop over and over and over and over again, so that you can have a lot of fun with that. Like in here, you could have a bird maybe flying across, and again doing the same thing where it just keeps going, flying and flying across the screen. All right, so this is the Scratch environment. This is where you can add as many sprites as you'd like. You can add backdrops if you like. And in another video, I'll show you how you can add those backdrops, and you can use the really cool features, as I kind of mentioned before, where if I'm going back to my yellow blocks, where I can send broadcasting a message, and there it just gets a little more sophisticated with our coding. And I will have a lot of fun with that for sure. I am hoping that with this video that you are comfortable with getting into Scratch Junior, knowing where to find the resources to help support you and your students playing with Scratch Junior, and having a lot of fun learning how to code and bring in some mathematical applications at the same time.